Hey, what's up, guys? Today I just wanted to give a little update about something that's happening in my life that is spiritually connected as well as so emotionally charged that I don't really know how to process it. So I'm going to process it with you guys in real time. So recently, my mom was rushed to the hospital into the ICU unit because she was having a hard time breathing when someone had called for a wellness check to where she lived. When they showed up there, she was unresponsive, blue in the face. They administered Narcan thinking that it might be an overdose. They really don't have a lot of answers. She doesn't really have a lot of answers from what they understand. And so she was in the hospital. I thought my mom was going to pass away. Now, the history between me and my mother is very lengthy. There's lots of trauma, like a lot of trauma, that she inflicted as well as I inflicted on her, just coinciding with this unhealthy, low vibrational, selfish, addicted, trauma driven lifestyle that I lived for a majority of my life. Some because of my childhood, but majority of it is because of choices that I made. And I've just been really pondering like the fragility of life. That just to give an update, she has been stable. She's been in ICU. She's now not needing the breathing machine. She isn't woken up yet, but she's stable. But during this period of time, I just had like this spiritual shift in my mind where I was just really contemplating the fragility of life. Because of the trauma that I have experienced in my life, I have this ability that when something traumatic happens, that my mind, I allow myself to just disassociate with it to where I almost become numb and I just turn my mind off. That's the only time I'm able to do it is when something intensely emotionally charged is happening or something traumatic is happening. Other than that, my mind's racing all the time. So it's quite a shift of how I normally perceive reality outside of those situations. Some of the stuff that I was thinking about, I really felt like this big feeling of a mixture of like relief that she's still here, but like also at the same time really concerned because she's in ICU and the doctors didn't really have any question. I mean, didn't really have any answers for me because they didn't have a lot of answers. This near loss experience is like really catechized like a spiritual awakening and a heightening of my awareness of like life's fragility and the importance of like spiritual connections. On my way, as I was rushing to her house after I had been told that she had the ambulance there because of a perceived overdose, I put a post on Facebook asking for prayers, and I did some breathing meditation / prayer manifestation stuff. And I just like sent my love healing energy that I have inside myself, that we all have inside ourselves, but that I have inside myself, coinciding with 200 to 300 people commenting on my Facebook post, sending prayers and love and good vibrations. That is profound. Is that it's very likely that I could be saying completely different things right now. Just a complete emotional mess because my mother passed away. But the idea that I mixed my love and healing power with the collective consciousness of humans who were all doing the same thing at the same time brings that type of energy into reality, because that many supercomputer intelligent consciousnesses all across the globe were all manifesting and sending energy to one specific thing. And it worked. She's stable now. Like I said, she's breathing. She's off the breathing machine, etc. They're going to move her out of ICU today. And I do believe wholeheartedly that my intention, as well as all the other intentions of the people who sent out prayers and love to my mother, it worked. It's real. With that also happening, I had to really actually contemplate what would happen if she passed away and how my life would look after that. And it really just gave me a different appreciation for life. I gained a deeper appreciation for life, like understanding that every breath really is a gift, that especially seeing someone I love in such a vulnerable state really just solidified in me that how much I love her and how much it would really affect me if she was gone, especially abruptly like that. It like I said, the sending the positive thoughts and healing energy towards my mom, I really think that the that intention and the power of intention and prayer aided her in her recovery. Feeling that even in the ICU, there's a spiritual connection that transcends the physical condition, keeping me close to her in spirit. Like while I was doing this prayer meditation stuff, I was just like talking to her, and I was imagining that our minds were connected, and that I was just telling her like, "Come on, mom, don't give up. You can do this. Just fight. You know, you got to breathe. You got to keep going. You got to keep fighting." As well as something that I have taken away from this a lot is patience, because there's a lot of unanswered questions. Learning patience in the art of just like letting go and understanding that there's a process that is influenced by forces that are seen and unseen, and that a lot of this is really out of my control. All I can really do is observe it, because there's a lot of things that my mind wants to try and control. Like my mind wants to try and predict the future. My mind tries to want to be able to read the doctor's minds or find underlying meanings in what he is saying, and taking what his words are saying as literal instead of figuratively. If you know, do you know what I'm saying? But it's taught me patience, that I just have to just like let this go, and it's whatever happens is just going to happen, and hope for the best and pray for the best, and don't speak negative options out there, because then I put it into the universe. But it just really solidified how much I love her, and how much that I am really actually scared to lose her. We haven't had the best relationship my entire life. Like I said, my childhood was filled with trauma. Her inducing it and influencing it, as well as the lack of parental supervision, allowed others to inflict trauma on me. And we used narcotics together during my addiction. And that's like the hardest thing, is that I'm like 6 years sober, and every other person in the world that uses drugs, I have stopped associating with, because for my safety, and my safety is the most important, because if I'm not safe and I'm making poor choices, that it directly affects my kids and my wife. But this the hardest thing is that I have the hardest time just like cutting my mom off. And so I've just still been attached to this lifestyle that I know is just so negative and deceitful and ruthless, really. And I just hope that she gets help, you know? From my own personal experience in addiction, I know that it doesn't matter if every single person on the planet is offering everything you could possibly think of to help you get sober, that if you don't want to get sober, you're not going to get sober. It doesn't matter. I'd spent 10 years in jails, did 8 to 9 rehabs, a whole bunch of one-on-one personal therapy, a bunch of group therapy, anger management, a whole bunch of cognitive restructuring therapy. And it wasn't until I just made the decision that I wanted to stop that I stopped. Addiction is so complex. There isn't just one book that could teach every person on the planet how to remedy or to become unaddicted. Realistically, you'd have to write an individual book for every single person on how they would be able to combat and overcome their addiction, because every single person's perception of the world is different. Not one person sees the world the same way the other person does. So these books and these treatments and these AA and all of these things, they're just educational institutions that allow the seeds of change to be planted, and then it's up to the individual to water that plant. The seed could be planted and it doesn't get watered for years. The seed could be planted and be watered immediately. But the idea is that that addiction therapy is just planting seeds. Because no one's going to get sober until they've just dealt with enough pain. And that's not pain that they inflict on others. That's pain that they feel themselves. And the human mind is such a weird thing when it comes to pain and addiction, because the pain can also fuel the addiction, but the only way to stop the addiction is you have to experience so much pain so many times for so long that you finally decide that you don't want it anymore, even though the pain or the trauma or losing your kids to the state or getting beat up by your husband or any of the infinite amount of possibilities is what fuels this decisive voice of your addiction inside of your head to convince you on, oh, poor me, I don't want to feel this anymore. Let's go get loaded. I mean, not a lot of people know this, but I have been down to the very bottom of the barrel, living at the homeless shelter and sleeping in the park and a whole plethora of things that come along with addiction. And I'm not supposed to be here. I'm a severe trauma victim. I was really addicted to drugs intravenously, methamphetamines and opiates. And I have a mental disorder that prevents me from easily loving and accepting myself for who I am. Majority of my life, I have perceived my value to be in the amount of approval I could get from the people that I specifically am choosing to want approval from in that moment. Most of my life, felt so unloved that I felt so unloved by the people around me that I didn't think that I was worth love. And if I wasn't worth love, then everything about me wasn't worth love. So in order to be worth love, I had to change things about me to be worthy of it. And so what I did for a majority of my life is I would just be highly observant of every human, and I would pick and choose certain characteristics from this dude, certain characteristics from this officer or this teacher or my friend or my sister or whoever it may be, and then just kind of like a jigsaw puzzle compiled this person that I thought that the world wanted me to be, because I couldn't accept myself. I don't trust myself. I didn't trust myself. I put myself in situations to gain approval of others that were unsafe for me or involved in crimes, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And the list could go on. But for some reason, the exact series of events happened throughout my life to put me in the position that I was in when I decided that I was never going to see the inside of a jail cell or a prison cell ever again. And really, that was the choice. It wasn't necessarily that I decided that I wanted to stop using drugs, but it was the choice that I never wanted to be inside of a cell ever again. And naturally, if I don't want to ever be inside of a cell again, the one thing that is similar to every time I've ever been inside of a cell was that I was in full-blown addiction. And so I just started doing it on my own. Sure, I went to treatment. I went to a few different treatments. They were all completely different, taught completely different methods, and I just took whatever with me that applied, and everything else, I just let it go. In ear, one ear, out the other. But for whatever reason, the series of events and choices that I made have led me to 6 years clean and sober. I feel like I'm in a position today where I actually genuinely love myself, and that I actually have gotten to a point where what people think of me doesn't always control my choices. Most of the time it doesn't control my choices, but I mean, I still struggle with what I struggle with, and there are some times that I do things for the intent to appease the other person, and that's not always a bad thing. It was only a bad thing when I would do that as a priority over myself. Now I know that I need to be my priority, because if I'm not well, then I can't be the best version of me. And if I can't be the best version of me, then I'm not going to be the best dad I could be. I'm not going to be the best partner I could be. I'm not going to be the best friend or brother or confidant or therapist sometimes, or teacher or healer, or all of these things that I have found purpose in. It all starts with me. It all starts with me loving me. It's a long ways from where I was. And for some reason, I just really felt compelled to come down here and just open my heart up a little bit. I'm not all about conspiracies or tinfoil hat stuff. The whole purpose of my channel, honestly, is actually just to get people to start loving themselves. Because I know that's single-handedly the one thing that changed my life. And now I have 6 years clean, when most people that experience the things that I experience either end up in a box under the ground or they end up in a jail cell for the rest of their lives. But I'm here. And if I can do it, it just doesn't sit right with me if I don't just talk about how I did it all the time. To hopefully plant those seeds like I was talking about earlier in whoever hears what I'm saying. Maybe one thing I say today really helps somebody. Maybe it planted 50 seeds that in a few years someone else will say something that will water this seed that I'm planting today, and positive things will come about. My idea isn't necessarily to save anyone, because I can't do that. The only person I can save is myself. But the idea is to get as many people on the planet to just start loving themselves a little bit more. And the more and the more and the more that happens, the better place this will be to live. That's pretty much it. If I can just get people to start loving themselves more, then they'll start loving others more. And then other people will start loving others more. And then eventually this dark and evil world and this weird matrix thing we live in will slowly start to become more beautiful. Even though it is still profoundly beautiful now. Go out into the nature and you'll just be so blown away at how beautiful the earth is. But maybe society will become more beautiful. And that's the goal, is to tell the world that I was able to overcome my addiction and my struggles, to come out on the other side a more loving, compassionate, understanding, generous, and honest person on the other side. And the profound changes that I've seen just in my life, I have to try and help other people do that. I love you all. Until we meet again, peace out, you trippy ass motherfucker.